Greetings.
Greetings.
This is Nawasha
And Macho Edu of the Akoma House Initiative, welcoming you to the video version of Soulmate Ready. And we'd like to start right off by asking a question. In your mind, what is the difference between being soulmate hungry and soulmate ready? What would you say is the difference?
What is the difference? I think, how we're living right now shows that we are hungry for a soulmate. Masha and I were talking earlier today about, there's millions of weddings every year in the United States. It's a $51 billion industry to get married, to have a wedding. Just getting counseling, premarital counseling, marital counseling, divorce counseling. It's billions and billions of dollars that we spend annually in American culture. So I think that we're all hungry for love, whether we're in the dating phase or the married phase or the remarried phase, but we're not necessarily ready for love because we haven't had the preparation from our parents, our elders, our community. We haven't had the rite of passage that we used to get to really prepare us as an individual to be ready to meet another person.
So I guess in short, soulmate hungry is the longing for love, and soulmate ready is being prepared. Being ready from the sense of you're prepared in yourself. You understand what to expect. Today, there's a statistic out that says 45% of divorced people felt as though being married was not what they expected. In other words, they going into the marriage, in pop culture, we're really big on weddings, shows about weddings, magazines about weddings, the preparation for the wedding day, but we're not really that big on sustaining marriage or healthy marriage. And when we do deal with marriage, it's always the ratchetness, the craziness, the dysfunction of marriage. It isn't usually, I do see a pendulum swing changing, but usually it isn't the success, the things that make us successful in our intimate relationships. And I think that most of us would agree that if we could have success in our intimate relationship, our whole society would change.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are relationship coaches, counselors, therapists, and we actually went into that from, I think that's a little bit of our own personality. We were always kind of like guides or coaches in our individual lives, but when we got together, I was laughing because I don't know what I thought that marriage was going to be like, but when we got married, it was a little bit of a shock to, from the wedding, from getting married to having a wedding, to not having the wedding that we actually planned to have and wanted to have, to that dominoing, is that a word? Dominoing?
It is now.
Into almost getting
we're
annulment.
We're etymology creators also.
To really wanting to separate all within a matter of a couple of days, I would say,
really?
or a couple of moments.
Yeah.
The stress of our own relationship and wanting to work out the, the problems, really wanting to solve the real issue after the dust settled, I think had us kind of combine in order to produce work and to help other couples and to really make sure that we could be with the group of people who are in the pendulum shift of initiating and supporting positive, healthy, non-toxic relationships.
One of the things I see when we're talking about being self-ready, there's like this idea out there a lot where people are often talking about, I see it in social media, I hear it in general conversation, where people talk about not dealing with drama, not disassociating themselves from anybody who represents what they call negativity or bad vibes, or they express it in all kinds of ways. Toxic people, people that don't feed you and whatnot. And I'm with that to a certain extent. But I know from a cultural perspective, a part of a rites of passage is the challenge or struggle to your character, to your personality. And a lot of times, many of the relationships that are appropriate for our growth and development always come with challenges. They always come with struggles. And those struggles are really designed for the individuals in those relationships to kind of really get their stuff together, and really, challenge you in a way that's uncomfortable and that's also inescapable. So that if people are continuously saying, anything, I cut my mom off, I cut whoever off. And what then begins to happen is you start to live in a world where you're only interacting with people who represent ease for you. Mm-hmm. And we know that is the precursor to self-destruction.
And, that's something important to recognize, though, is what is real toxicity and what is just a challenge for you to overcome, or to not even necessarily overcome completely, but to go through to actually develop your own character. And I think that there's a fine line between some people in relationships who never draw a boundary and really are in situations that they need to cut somebody off or remove themselves, and then people who put up a boundary or put up a wall too soon, that anything that challenges who they are, they're not willing to actually grow. So what we see is with the effort or the hunger, as Masho said, to find a relationship, to have it work, to invest in a wedding, to start a family. We see a lot of effort on one hand, whether it's money, material, your thoughts, actual time. But on the other hand, a lot of times people wait to be their real selves. So you might be like a year in, 2 years in, and you're like, when can I actually be myself in this relationship? So what we started to see through our own counseling and through helping other people is that you really need to be yourself as soon as possible. Right. So you need to be yourself for yourself, but you also need to be your real self so that you actually attract the person who is the complement to that. So we started doing a method in our own coaching with other people and our writing books, where we really talked about being soulmate ready. And we kind of developed an acronym for SOUL, which is self, others, understanding, and love systems or love rituals. And what we said is that if you can move through these steps, you better understand yourself so that you actually know why you're attracted to who you're attracted to, and if that should change, if you need to make some adjustments in yourself to present better what you really want deep down in your heart. We talk about understanding another person. So the other. Who is the other? Your soulmate. What are you wanting to attract in that person? And the idea of being a complement versus an opposite. Then we talk about really understanding, which I like to say is harmonizing a relationship. Understand. So it's one thing to know another person or to be anticipating another person if you really do know yourself and you're looking for a complement. But it's another thing to have understanding. So to keep evolving, to go for the longevity of any long-term relationship is going to go through phases.
Right.
Any long-term relationship, we look forward to the beginning. We look forward to the chemistry, we call it, or the honeymoon period after we get married. But the truth is, that evolves and changes. Just like you do as a person, your relationship is another entity that is going to go through a phase of a year or two like this, a year or two like this, but that it's not a downward spiral. Like we sometimes think this is the highlight when you're first attracted and first married, and then it's just a dismal
it's a drop
off,
right,
of what that has to be. And actually it should be an elevation, you know. So that understanding of how to talk, how to have intimacy, how to recover from arguments, how to build, how to grow, how to change, how to deal with loss, for yourself, loss with your partner, lost in your relationship, all of those things. That's part of our rite of passage also, is having a toolbox to really understand the relationship.
And I think that's important, even from the word. We always talk about word purge and word cultivation. Word purge is words and terms and sayings that we should get rid of, and word cultivations are ones that we should create, or they exist already and we should actively use those in our relationship. And just from the example you given, babe, I think that the whole term of falling in love represents that whole description you just gave. Mm-hmm. So we say building in love. Building in love is perpetual and eternal. Falling in love, now either you're going to fall forever or eventually you're going to hit something. You're going to hit the ground. You're going to hit something. And usually, if we can visualize it, I'm a very visual person. If we can visualize it, that ends in some kind of destruction. When I think about falling in love, eventually you're going to hit something hard and it's going to hurt. When you talk about building in love, you're talking about, from my whimsical imagination, I can see building a castle in the sky forever, or building something that lasts into forever. So, I just think that some of the things that we say represent our miseducation and create that false expectation that we talked about earlier, that people talked about. But today we're dealing with self, and we want to get right into it. Something that we talk about often is thought, speech, and action. And so we want to go right to this. When we say love, when we say intimacy, when we say relationships, when we say going together, being married, hooking up, all of us have a thought that is usually linked to a visceral emotion, something we feel deep down, something that moves us. It moves the crowd of your emotional party that goes on in yourself. And we usually have a belief system connected to words that we use that move us, like falling in love, building in love, hooking up, being married. I could be by myself. I could do good. All the things that we say, all the crazy stuff that we say. So we want to ask you, when you think of the word soulmate, whether it's something you hear often, I hear it a lot often because of the work that we do, and I'm always listening to it, and I'm always looking for it, so I pull it magnetically to me. So I hear soulmate at least 20 times a week. Maybe you don't, but I'm sure you've heard the term before. What is your immediate belief around that word? Is it garbage? Is it real? Is it some BS that some people made up? Is it unrealistic? Is it the most beautiful thing you've heard of? Have you heard the origin or creation of the concept of soulmate from autochthonous culture? I would be willing to bet that you have not, because it's something that's not readily accessible out there. It's starting to spread somewhat thanks to our work and other people that are initiated into cultural work, but it's something that we don't really understand. So when we say soulmate, what is the thought that you have, and what is the belief that is behind that thought?
And then another piece of today's heart work is what we call our love lessons, is to really, speaking of just the belief that you have about soulmate, do you use that term like Mansho said? Where did you get that belief, and what is it? It's just your overall belief about love. So most of us have beliefs that we're not conscious of, that we don't operate with our beliefs being at the forefront of our thoughts. So, excuse me. So a lot of times we might say, love is hard. I'm too old to find love. I'm too young to be thinking about marriage. I'm too broken, troubled.
You can't trust nobody.
Yeah, all men
you can't
are
trust
blank.
None of them.
Or all women are blank. So at the same time that we are putting so much effort into dating apps, into going out, into dressing up, into meeting someone, into all of those things, even into getting married, truthfully. We sometimes go to premarital counseling, but a lot of times we don't get to hidden, or we don't really uncover our deep beliefs. And the truth is, we normally make those beliefs in the early part of our life. So in the first 7 years of your life, in looking at other adults, looking at your parents, aunts, uncles, teachers, whoever the adults are in your immediate community, you're listening to what they're saying about love. You're looking more than anything at their examples, and then you're making a decision. So like for me, younger in life, I think I made the decision that I don't want any problems. I don't want, love should be great, because again, I'm a woman, and I know I had I definitely had some of the fairy tale stories and some of the higher examples of love stories, the more mythology, or some of those things that we kind of take for granted in culture. But in actuality, I said, I don't want to fight. Right. I don't want to have a difficult situation. I want it to be easy. So like, I didn't realize that I made that decision when I was maybe 7 or 8. Definitely had the decision made by the time I was a teen and started to date. But I can see that belief that I was not aware of showed up in my relationships. Whenever there was some kind of conflict, I would either ignore it or stand down when I really should have taken a stand for myself, because I just didn't. I was anticipating probably 5 or 10 steps beyond the conflict that it would be worse, even though I really didn't have proof for that in my life, because I never really took it that far. I had made the decision that other people don't seem to talk about love in a great way. It may be only idealistic, but in practicality, people say it's hard, people say it's difficult. And then I saw, some conflict with my parents that made me just feel like, I don't want that, and I don't know how to really get through it happily and successfully. Because sometimes as a child, you don't see the work through. And you don't see the end. So all you're left with is your interpretation of what's happening.
Right.
But if I look at myself honestly and say, what did all the relationships that I had as a teen and in my 20s, and I met Masho in my early 20s, so I'm including him, what did that have in common? It's definitely that there were times I felt something was not right. I felt that something was not good, even within myself, but that I chose to not finish the conversation, to not bring it up a second time. I didn't have the tools for managing conflict. So that I can definitely see that although I met people at different times, different phases of my life, that I was drawing as part of the complementary energy to elevate my own character. I drew, over and over and over, the idea that I don't know how to initiate a conversation that's uncomfortable or work through conflict without it being like the end of the universe, or in my mind, the end of the relationship. So many times I said, hey, I have a conflict, and I think if I bring this up, that it could be the end of the relationship, and I want to avoid that at all costs. So I'm going to stand down.
In between the ages, we talk about life cycle development, something we call at the Akoma House Initiative, the 7 sevens, right? And so in the second 7, which is 7 to 14, I'm clear that this is when this happened. I developed this belief. Do not stay with someone where things aren't working out. And the reason I developed that is because growing up, my sister and I, growing up under our parents were married up until my sister's a couple years older than me. She was 19, I was 17. She was already gone out of the house into college. But, my parents at that phase of our lives were having a horrible marriage. And so they were two great people who really got married. It was a different generation, a different time. They got married because they were having children, and not because they chose each other because they love each other or they were able to work out complementary styles. So we lived together out in the suburbs, and we struggled. We weren't wealthy or anything like that, but the point was a lot of things imploded on them. You have two children that you didn't really planned to have, but you loved them very much. You were living together and trying to make ends meet in a turbulent time. We were dealing with all kinds of things. At the time in the suburb we were living in, we were a handful of black families. We saw some racism, and we was dealing with a lot of stuff. And my parents were growing their careers. My father, state police, my mom working in criminal justice. And so it was like, yo, we don't really like each other, but here we are, and this is the thing that we're doing. And so it progressed and progressed, and it spiraled out of control until I watched two people, my mom and dad, who I love very much, be unhappy in their lives. And so it was burned into my psyche. Do not stay in a relationship, whether you have children or not. Do not stay in a relationship where you're unhappy. Now, that is a pattern that played out in my life all the way up until I met Nawasha, and in the most crazy way with some of my personal story that, I'll deal with later. But I think for me, that lesson became a hypersensitivity in my psyche without a regulation, without a check and balance. Like, yo, some stuff is just like, stop it.
So on this, your mate really should be bringing to you is the check and balance. But I think I was like frozen.
Yeah, because I flipped out.
Situations like the deer in headlights. Like, wait a second, are we having this conversation about shirts?
Yeah.
Or is there something deeper?
Because she came back with the shirt, like, yo, and I exploded. Like,
I was like,
yo,
I'm sure you have something else you could wear.
I'm like,
and
yo,
you do your own laundry from now on.
I'm like, yo, this is whack. Maybe we shouldn't just be together. And I think I said it like that. You think maybe we should just stop this? And she was like, what? I just came back from Miami and you gonna flip on me like that? So, we went through our thing. We went through our little dance. But today, it's a joke in our relationship. Right. So whenever, like, if I ask her to go to the store or something, or even when I do something that she didn't ask for, and I come back and I say, oh, I got the raspberry drink. She said, no, I said the lime. And I'll joke and say, oh, you think we shouldn't be together anymore? So that's just a running joke that we have.
We can laugh about it now, but this is so serious. If you are looking for your soulmate, you really need to know when you made some key decisions in your life. So this is what we're offering today.
Right.
As this first lesson that you can download the indigenous, cultural story of the science of soulmating. It's the oldest story of soulmating on the planet. And also in the download, it gives you some hard work, some exercises for discovering your beliefs about love and the major key decisions that you have made about love. So about all kinds of love, about parenting, about, sister circle, sister love, the brotherly love.
Right.
But most importantly, or what we're really leading with, is what you're understanding, what your beliefs, what your key decisions were about intimate love. Because many times we have a conflict.
Right.
Like,
we
I
have
want to be in a
conflict.
relationship,
right.
but it's hard.
Right.
I'm spending money going out dating, but I can't trust men.
Right.
I, really want to be myself, but I won't be accepted. So a lot of times we have that.
She
conflict.
fine, but all these women are scandalous.
So what are you going to do?
Those types of
right?
things.
We have culturally, we know and we share with whoever we work with that there is a law of magnetism in the universe. So a lot of times you'll get what you expect to get.
Right.
So when you're expecting one thing, and this could be from the same person, like what we just said in that example. If you're saying, hey, I want someone who is, willing to do things for me and do this, and, someone who is, who speaks their mind and who says, when you say that you want that, sometimes you get it, and not in the way that that is the softest or the most gentle. But then you're not aware.
What are you talking about me?
I was actually talking about myself.
Oh, okay.
So you're not aware of your key decision, so you don't know how to check it. You don't know how the other person is divinely made to help your character develop. And that growth is not always comfortable in the beginning. It's not always what you can expect in the beginning, But the more that you practice the growth, or the more that you anticipate it, and the more you know about yourself and what your complement is meant to do, then you can embrace the challenges, knowing that you can get through them because you have the tools to get through them. So rather than avoid it, like I said I was doing, rather than get rid of it, like Masho said he was doing, like cutting things off.
Being hypersensitive and just cutting it off, right?
You actually can know, this is my personality, this is the decision that I made, and we can show you the techniques to make a new decision. So, we like to call it time travel in a way, because you can't go back to being 7 years old, right? But you can do certain things that make you have a different perspective about what happened when you were 7 or 10 or 15 or whatever it is. So you can really ask yourself, is this decision working out for me? Am I getting what I want to get out of my life thanks to this decision? Or what decision would I really need to have made? Or what do I need to make now to really get what I truly want to magnetize to myself? So if you download that heart work, it's written out for you so that you can, take a few minutes, maybe like 20 minutes to an hour, to let it sit,
sit
and
with your
think
thoughts.
about it. Think of a couple of real examples from your life, and then meet us in video number 2.
And I would just say in closing, what are the thoughts? What are the beliefs that they produced, and where do they come from? Because as we go through every cycle of our life, we develop new thoughts and beliefs. But a lot of times when you come to the intimate relationships, the foundational life cycles, or 7s as we call them, 0 to 7, 7 to 14, usually by 14 to 21, most people have developed the thoughts and beliefs that they have about relationships that are actually guiding their behavior even in their late 20s, early 30s, late 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. Those belief systems usually come, for most people, they have come in those first 2, but definitely by the first 3, which is, the composite of birth to 21. So, we as Nawasha said, go in, really pay attention to the ancient story of soulmates, because I'm certain that unless you've been dealing with us or a couple of other people, you probably have not heard it. So please check that out. And then after that, really give some serious thought about what you believe and the emotion of what you believe, and then the why you believe it, the thoughts that are behind it.
And if it's working out for you.
Yeah,
that's an important thing.
That's very important, right?
Once you get the awareness, you have to say to yourself, is this belief lined up with going to date? If I'm putting in a lot of effort into going out to meet a great man that I want to take care of me, that I want to support, that I want to take care of, is it to my benefit to think all men are liars and cheaters?
Right.
Probably not. Right? So you would have to clear up or uncover those beliefs and deal with them, replace them with something that would work for you. Otherwise, if you deeply, deeply believe that all men are liars and cheaters, that's exactly what you're going to get, because you want to prove your own self right on a subconscious level. But then the magnetism that you're drawing is that this is what I think that I'm worth, or this is what I think that all of my compliments would be. So of course, we want to know how you feel once you do the heart work. So we'd love for you to make a comment, send us an email, or reach us on social media so that we can see what you uncovered and see what you learned about yourself.
So go ahead and get to work, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. And as always, we greet you in loving peace, and we say, Nia Akoma.